All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and a warm welcome to each and every one of you at MUFC Red Devils NCR. I have Wali Bhai with me on the stream today. Wali Bhai, first of all, warm welcome to you. Hope you're doing well. And as you can see, there is a slight change in my background today. Normally, it's just that brown, but today you can see date palms behind me and something that signifies a classic Middle Eastern setup. And I think we know why. It has been making the rounds perhaps for the better part of last night, this early doors morning, if you're talking from an Indian perspective. But from a UK perspective, it's already been quite a while since the news is going around, making the waves and so on and so forth. So, Vaiba, before we get into it in detail, which we definitely will during the course of the stream, my big question to you is today finally the day, or is this week finally the week where we are finally feeling Qatari? Like, what are your first thoughts, and what was your first thought when the news broke out about the impending takeover? Let's just go with that.
So, when we speak about the announcement, I'm not too sure when it is going to be announced. Either it's going to be today, tomorrow, or probably by the end of the week. Uh, I think we might just have to wait a little while more. That's my feeling. And yes, I think, however, a preferred bidder, there will not be a segment when there won't be a segment or a headline where it says that Sheikh Jassim, or let's say, God forbid, Sheikh Sir Jim Ratcliffe is your preferred bidder. The preferred bidder category is now completely expelled. Whatever the next announcement will be, it will be basically the final thing. So it will be that these set of people are your new owners. So as per what we have been saying for the last 3-4 days, you have to say that I think Qatar and Sheikh Jassim in particular, the 9-2 Foundation, do seem like they are the preferred bidders. And if you ask me why do I feel that's the reason, because if you compare the coverage that Qatar has been getting recently in contrast to how Sir Jim Ratcliffe was getting in the past 2 or 3 weeks, it's completely different. It's chalk and cheese. There is no difference at all. And all of a sudden, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's camp is completely silent because, as per what we've been hearing, the valuation and the amount that Sheikh Jassim has actually put in is quite similar to what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has, uh, despite his promise of actually buying Manchester United in the next 2 to 3 years' time and having Glazers still at the helm somehow. So it's better for them. But it's better for the Glazers to take the money and run away, because this is the best possible thing that they might get at this stage of time. And you can clearly see, even if you Google Manchester United share price right now, you can see it's on the up. It's constantly on the up. So that just indicates that people are excited for it, and there is something that is happening behind the scenes. The share price is a clear indication of that. Uh, and yes, I feel that it is bound to happen. Some British journalists are still saying that the sources are basically denying the fact that anything has been struck with the Glazers. But there have been many outlets from Doha, from Qatar, who have actually said it out loud that they are in pole position, and some have even gone to the extent of saying that they're very confident and they've actually bought the club. So there's no smoke without fire, and we haven't heard many outlets from Qatar actually saying this since the start of this process. And once they've finally begun, you could actually sense it, that it's finally right in front of you. So I think, yes, it's going to be Sheikh Jassim who is going to buy the club. I am quite excited, but we will get into the details of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there's no smoke without fire, and obviously, you cannot clap without two hands. So the crux of the matter is, if there are news, or if there are rumors or reports floating around, then there has to be a particular source, or maybe a ground zero, perhaps, where these sources or these reports have originated from. You spoke about the share price. So it all started with the share price blowing up, like around it increased by around what, 16% or so, and it was close to around $23 per share when the stock market closed. And the source that broke out the original news was a newspaper called Al Watan, which is a Qatari tabloid. And it is believed, or I think it is pretty obvious by now, that 50% of it is owned by Sheikh Jassim's father. Now, obviously, if a tabloid, and this tabloid is a pretty verified source, if you go to see, It has close to 300,000 followers on Twitter, and it has been a verified news tabloid from a Twitter perspective since 2015. And this date back a long way before before the Muskism of Twitter started, where you have to pay for your verification and so on and so forth. So it's been quite a while since the source has been verified, and coming from a source like this that has a fair amount of standing in social media, I think it is not something to scoff at. So and another reason why is the Middle Eastern countries like say Qatar or Saudi Arabia. These are predominantly very proud nations, and if there is a person from their country or from their nationality who's trying to get into something that is so monumental and which is a pretty historic thing to do, I don't think they will go ahead and report something based on a hunch or
Yeah.
based on a figment of their imagination, if we were to say. So I genuinely believe that there is a fair ground of legitimacy to it, and like you said, I think this is the time where we need to be cautiously optimistic. And but I do feel that by the end of the week there will be a resolution somewhere, some way or the other. So getting into this now, obviously, the moment that this news came out, the English side of things, that is the English press. Now you spoke about all the once Al Watan came out with it, all the other Qatari sources began quoting it. Like you said, everyone, some of them even went as to the extent of saying that it is a success, and have subtly congratulated the Sheikh on acquiring United as well. Whereas it has been an entirely different tone as far as the English sources are concerned. They have automatically gone in the defensive, saying that the Qatari sources have indicated that they were blindsided. As of today, no one has been informed of who is the preferred bidder. It has been a it has been a pretty defensive stance by the English press. So, what are your thoughts on the contrasting nature of the English press? Like, are you surprised? Are you not? Or what exactly? Do you believe that there is a subconscious defiance to the fact that it could be Qatari owners owning arguably one of the greatest clubs or one of the biggest clubs, not only in English football but in world football? Does that does that instinctive defensiveness to the fact that an outsider, a perceived outsider, comes in and buys, or is the owner of one of the most prestigious clubs? Do you believe that is something like that? Are you surprised actually by the defensive nature of these reports that are making the rounds from an English press perspective?
Well, I am not, because we all saw during the FIFA World Cup as well. There were people were calling it one of the most controversial World Cups due to certain reasons. And yes, uh, like we can deep dive into it. Like we can deep dive into this thing, and we could say that yes, there are problems with, like, let's say, every country, including the country that we are living in. But not accepting the fact that one individual, or you might say that it is straight backed, and uh, he's just basically a decoy. But as per what we know, the information that is being given to us, it is this one individual who has a foundation that goes by the name of 92 Foundation. And Nasser Al Khalifi, they were earlier trying to paint this picture that Nasser Al Khalifi is indirectly being an associate in this nature of transaction. But he clearly said it in the very next day that I have nothing to do with it. And if anyone asks me for an opinion or for any suggestion, I will definitely help them out. So, they have been trying. And the other thing is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, being obviously um, being a UK born, being a so-called Manchester United fan, although he is a Chelsea season ticket holder. I'm not sure everyone knows that. The way that they have actually given this hero image of him, as if in spite of him in spite of us knowing the fact that he is responsible for actually giving the Glazers an option to actually stay there, and despite them knowing that what the Glazers have done to the club for the last 18 years, practically destroyed it, and still we haven't heard much from them against Sir Jim Ratcliffe. What I feel is that there needs to be a balanced approach. Of course, I'm not saying that they should all bash Sir Jim Ratcliffe. They should praise Al Thani. What they should do is that they should keep a balanced approach. Unfortunately, I do not get to see that. It's mostly one sided. However, in the last 4 days, since they've been a little quiet, they've been a little defensive. And the other thing is, logically speaking, the NDAs were already signed, non-disclosure agreements. So not a lot of people know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is either Rain Group or Manchester United on their website, they just put out a club statement. No journalist will be the first one to actually, print the story, and which is why they are on the defensive, because they have no clue. And because every time there's a bid that is put in by Qatar, there's always a different quote. Some say it's 6 billion, some say it's 7.4, some say it's 5.2, some say the debt is added in it. So they have absolutely no clue. However, a common theme that is running at this moment of time is that all of them feel that Qatar is now in pole position to actually buy this club, and I think that is something which we might get to see.
You spoke about any journalist potentially not being able to break out the takeover news. Imagine how much of a heartbreak this will be to the likes of Fabrizio Romano, whose bread and butter is basically breaking out such kind of
I
news.
think I
So
think during this whole transfer saga, I think Mike Keegan has been the one who's been most
it's been more
followed.
active for
Yeah, he's
more
been more
active as
active.
far as the
Yeah,
takeover saga is concerned. Yeah,
yeah.
and I think recently, after a small TikTok video that has been making the rounds, I think it's Ornstein who is a close second.
Hmm.
And it is very interesting to note that both of these guys are British journalists, so as to say. And just as we speak, we have Anshuman Bhai with us on the stream. Hi, Anshuman Bhai, warm welcome to you. Uh, and before I get into the nitty gritties with you as well, Anshuman Bhai, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Wali Bhai earlier in the stream. Is today the day that you finally feel Qatari?
Not really. I mean, there will be a day when I feel Qatari or any other nationality for that sort. But yeah, I've like as far as the takeover is concerned, I'm just tired. I've just given up on any. I'm not following the deal closely at all. Like it's happening, it's not happening. Let's just let it rumble on in the background. If it's to happen, it will happen. Otherwise, couldn't care less. We are already as bad as we can be as far as viewership is concerned in a footballing context. Needs to be established.
Absolutely. I think you speak for a wide faction of Man United fans who have potentially lost hope, who've potentially given up as far as the takeover progress is concerned because of the sheer way that it has handled it. I mean, we started off with a lot of hopes, expectations, and excitement, but just like the club, the Glazers have managed to drain that out of the takeover process as well, which more or less goes on to prove that they were what they were in the first place. So Anshuman Bhai, I was speaking to Wali Bhai about the defensive nature of the English journalist when the news broke out from Al Watan, and then when once that broke out, a large variety of Qatari sources or a lot of Qatari based journalists decided broke down the news to further details, and then you could see a starkly opposite campaign which was adopted by the English press, wherein words like blindsided, words like taken aback, taken by surprise, we don't know who the preferred bidder is, are some of the keywords that have come out in the recent statements which have been put out by the likes of Simon Stone, by the likes of Joey D. Urso in the Athletics, so on and so forth. So I asked the same question to Maribai. I'd like to know your thoughts on it. Are you really surprised?
Not really, because it's less about the journalism in the situation. It's more about our dear owners, because they did not give any kind of proper indication since day one as to what they really wanted out of all of this. I think as far as look, the media angle is quite simple. It's Manchester United, so you milk the cow until the cow dies. Quite frankly, so if you are getting good Manchester United content, it doesn't matter how vapid your writing is. It doesn't matter whether you are regurgitating the same shit over and over again. As long as it's Manchester United, it will sell. So you continue doing that, and that's coming from someone who, quite frankly, does that quite himself. Because being in the media, Manchester United is a name that sells. As far as the lackluster nature or the confusing nature of the entire process has been, it's down to the Glazers more than anything, because I have felt from day one that I was very befuddled. I have pointed this before as well, that I was very confused with the idea as to what suddenly changed that made them think that okay, now it's time to sell. Because every single time they have just tried to run the club dry and take as much profit as they can out of the club, because even the dividend structure that they have set up, is in such a way that whether we are in the Champions League or in the Europa League, they keep getting that 7 to 8 million % every single quarter. regardless of what we are getting back into the club, because what we are getting is a huge debt that keeps on rising. So there were a lot of things that had been pondering over ever since the Super League thing happened as well. I was thinking that if you are a venture capitalist trying to earn money in an ecosystem where revenue is not guaranteed, where Champions League qualification is not guaranteed, promotion and relegation is a thing, the Super League has to have been your end game. And when it turned out that it cannot happen in the way that you wanted it to be, then cashing out is quite a lucrative option. So the numbers that even being thrown around earlier was like 4 billion, 6 billion, and this is the kind of numbers that would entice the Glazers. And I think the Glazers just wanted to test the waters and see what happens. And they got the kind of interest that they wanted to get. You have two different parties who have their reasons for investing into Manchester United, which we have gone into the past. But the thing is that the Glazers are not clear in their end. They did not enter this takeover negotiations wanting to sell the club. Like if they did actually want to do that, we've recently come out with the news that Leeds United's takeover has been completed, and that will now happen in the next few days. That is a thing that happens when the owner has a clear idea in mind that for whatever reason I need to get the club off my books. So Glazers don't have that thing in their mind. So when they themselves don't know what they want, and we have talked or we have heard about reports in the media as well, and it's a very natural thing to even think about that. You look at the kind of abuse Glazers have received, whether it's right or wrong is a different matter. But if you are a family member of the Glazers, associated with them in any way whatsoever, and we also need to keep in mind that Glazers not own 100%, they own 78% of the club. So there's a lot of people involved here, and you know the kind of flack United have been getting. You know the kind of lack of revenue that the jeopardy with revenue that exists. So there is a large party here where understandably they are confused whether we should cash out with the kind of money we are getting, or we should continue to be invested in this project where at least money is guaranteed year in year out. So that is a very big thing. Do you get it's like you get it's a philosophical question you can ask anyone. Do you get one? Would you like to have 1 crore right now, or would you like to get 10,000, 20,000 for the rest of your life every single month? So that is the kind of dilemma they are in. They did not have a clear idea. So that's what we are seeing percolating into the negotiations as well. I, as a fan, can only hope that whether it's happening or not, we get over with. So we have an idea, the club have an idea, the people who are making the decisions on the pitch have an idea as to how to go forward with this. Because otherwise, everything is stuck, and we don't know where to go with it, what to think about it. I'm in the middle of writing this end of season review. I don't know what to write about the ownership because I have no idea. I don't know what to write about the next season because I don't know what will happen. So yeah, it's everything is up in the air, and we can only sit here and speculate as to what can happen in the next few hours.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you've spoken about it very well. You've explained the situation very beautifully, and I think this is a time to perhaps wait with especially a vast majority of things being up in the air. Walibai J has put in a very interesting perspective on what he thinks about the prospective Qatari ownership, where he believes that the takeover will change not only the club but the mentality of the players, not only those who will come into the club, but also those who are in the club. Whereas he believes that some players will be fighting for their futures, whereas the other ones who will come in will know that they're entering into a club which is going to start an ambitious new project. So, what are your thoughts on Jehan's statement? Do you agree? Do you agree with it, or do you think that there is another way to look at it?
Um, at this moment of time, it seems positive. However, if we actually look, as per what Jay has said over here, that is something which we will have to find out once it's been officially done. Because as you can see, Chelsea had sold their club to Boli, and he ended up signing, I don't know, God knows how many players for
Let's say 3,000.
3,000 players during the summer, during the winter transfer window, by the way. And we all thought that Chelsea is going to ace everything, and it's going to be, they're going to be on the top of the world, etc. But they weren't. They were actually fighting for relegation at one point. It seemed like. So you having money but not having a brain is a curse. I think, on the contrary, over here, because Sheikh Jassim does seem like a Manchester United fan, and Qataris, like you've mentioned, there's some proud individuals. The way that they do conduct business is something which is appreciated throughout the world. Even if you look at London, I've mentioned it earlier. Half of London and half of the properties in London are basically all sponsored by the Qataris over there. So it's been a success over there. But when it comes to football, obviously you will the main aim should be that you need to have football people to make the decision, the right people, when it comes to your director of football. Although we have a director of football right now, but in the future, if when it comes to being patient with your manager, I know now that we have a new owner, the pressure will now be on Eric Ten Hag, because now everyone will say that you have an owner who's actually investing on the signings that you wanted, and you're not getting the results. And it could be a double-edged sword. That is something which has happened with PSG in the past. That is something which has happened, that happens with Manchester City to an extent before Pep Guardiola, because Manuel Pellegrini won the league with
In his
Manchester
first
City, but
season. In his
no
first
one
season, yeah.
in his first season no one remembers him right now. Roberto Mancini, I think his achievement was far more significant than Pep Guardiola winning the league. Although yes, he has won the treble, that is something significant. But Mancini winning it for the very first time goes in the history book. But I don't think many people do remember him at this stage of time. So they will be ruthless, but at the same time, you need to have people to make the right decisions. If we do that, then I think if you have a proper hierarchy, if you have a proper system, rather than just because see, signing players has not been a problem for Manchester United. We ended up signing Casemiro last season. We have signed Paul Pogba and Zlatan Ibrahimovic when we were actually in the Europa League. So
Correct.
Manchester United as a brand and as a pull will always be there. So signing players will not be a problem. But in terms of providing facilities, in terms of investing in your training ground, in terms of investing with your women's team, and in terms of just the overall package, it needs to be exceptionally well. Once you do that, I think simultaneously things will go hand in hand. As you can see with Newcastle United, they haven't pumped in a lot of money when it comes to the players, but the atmosphere that was created just by getting a new owners, new people running the business. You have a new training ground, and you can just look at their performances, positive intent, and now they finished fourth. They could have finished third as well. So yes, you need. I think yes, there will be a source of positivity there, but I just hope that we don't get reckless, because once you have deep pockets, you can make a lot of reckless decisions.
Yeah, totally agreed. Understandably so. We need to be very careful in how we spend the money and not just adopt the bully way. So Anshuman bhai, moving into a similar pattern now. Obviously, when the new owners come in, as is the case in any sporting club, for example, they will have a certain in tray of issues that they will need to work about, or they have to navigate themselves through a complex situation which the club finds itself in. Now, for Man United in itself, it is somewhat good and it is somewhat bad. Like Wali Bhai said himself, that it is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have this commercial juggernaut who is capable of generating a large amount of revenue on its own as an isolated brand and entity. Yet you see throughout the last decade itself, it is still a case of gross mismanagement, which we can solely put it down to the owners or whatever the other external factors, predominantly the owners here. But now that you know, what would be the in tray of the new ownership? There have been a lot of reports circulating around that if the Qatari ownership is confirmed, which should be for most of them, it is believed that they would take close to 100 days to conduct a proper audit and see which things need to be sorted out, which teams do not require change, which areas of the club do require change. So my question to you is: in this in-trade, do you believe that will a wholesale change happen within the first year of the ownership? Or do you think that they will first initially take stock and maybe consolidate and see what is good, what is not, so on and so forth?
At this point, I don't expect a wholesale change to happen this summer. Like, take your mind back to the Newcastle United takeover, which happened in the middle of the season. They were battling relegation. They let go of Bruce. They bring Eddie Howe, and their first and foremost target is stay in the Premier League. They do that, modest mid-table finish. Next season, now with the once they have audited the team situation, what needs to be done, what's not. They get a proper director of football in. They get their situation behind the scenes right. Then they start investing, and it's not that they spend an unbelievable amount of money. They spend amount of money you would expect a Premier League club to spend with the kind of resources they had, and they recruited right. Basically, they looked at the Man City blueprint and realized that okay, this is something that exists. So if we recruit right, it will work well for us, and they exceeded expectations. Which again is a double-edged sword, because again Newcastle United's first and foremost target would have been to be a top half club. they ended up in the Champions League. So good for them. For United at this point, for Manchester United at this point, it's hard because had the takeover happened earlier in the year, they would have had that 3-4 month grace period within the season itself, so that they could have properly prepared for the summer and decided what needs to change, what needs to happen. So that is very hard right now. So what we can assume at this point is that the only thing that is going to change in the summer, if the takeover, let's say, happens in late June or early July, maybe we will have the intent of the ownership will change, because right now the Glazers are about, we'll suck the club dry, we'll get our money, and whatever goes back into the squad depends on how much money we generate and how much the debt is sustained. So that will immediately change, because if, let's say, the highest probable outcome is that the Qatari ownership arrives, the debt will be gone. Their immediate idea as an owner is to make sure that they get the fans on their side, because that is something the ownership of United hasn't had for 20 years now. And so that is something that they would want to do. They would genuinely want to invest in the club, in every aspect of the club, not just the club but the community around it. And so that will be their immediate that is the message they would immediately want to send out. So the positive effect that will have at the club from on a local point, and even in across the world, at least the fans will have an ownership that they will believe would actually want the club to succeed, and the ownership would want the club to succeed. That will not happen. That will not bring about a lot of change this summer. I think a few targets that would otherwise be unachievable under the Glazer ownership, they might change. But overall, I think the plan that is currently in hands with the likes of John Water and Richard Arnold, they will be left to do it. Maybe they will be given extra funds if they think that there is a target that can be got at, which could not have been possible in the Glazers, because you could not convince the Glazers to get a player, because that just could not happen. That might happen with the Qataris. Something along those lines might happen, but I don't think a lot of changes will happen this summer. But we'll start seeing that in January. We'll start seeing that in the next summer, granted that the takeover happens within the next month. So, yeah, the intent itself, well, he pointed out the fact that Newcastle, after 15 years of ownership under Mike Ashley, someone who did not connect with the club, did not care about the club, but the people had lost all sense of hope. And now you go to St. James's Park, you see it bouncing, you see it filled with hope. That kind of intangible is something that actually carries a lot of weight. So that is something that once it happens with the Manchester United fan base, at least in the beginning, would have a lot of uplifting effect. And just having an ownership that the fans believe will have the club's interest at heart first and foremost. So yeah, those intangibles will be changed drastically. But as far as the on-pitch operations are concerned, immediately there will not be a lot of changes. We'll see that over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Lakshya says Qatar will definitely be owning the club. Like your optimism, Lakshya, hope it is true. Anshuman, by talking about a little bit of the Qatari ownership, we've had a conversation before regarding the ownership, and there was a question that was a bit of a sticky point, as in whether this is a sports washing, it should be sports washing project, so on and so forth. Rohit Bhai says we should be talking about transfer targets, but we're talking about owners. Yeah, Rohit Bhai, unfortunately, it is what it is. But unfortunately, that's the situation of the things that we have been surrounded by ourselves. Thanks to the incompetence of the owners of us. So it is what it is. So. Anshuman, by coming back to that post-watching topic, all of a sudden there is a lot of talk about the other factions of fans speaking about oil money, oil this, oil that, and so on and so forth. But don't you think that all we need as a club is just a little bit of backing from the outside? Because I spoke to you earlier just about this topic, where United in itself is a self-sufficient and self-generating commercial unit, where we do generate tremendous amount of income, irrespective of the troubled times that we are in, from an ownership perspective or from a performance perspective. We still remain one of the most valuable football clubs in and around the footballing sphere. We still are one of the commercially successful giants. A United name will gather a lot of crowd. It does gather a lot of attention in newspapers, so on and so forth. Do you believe that accusations of oil money are just a little untoward, or just a little bit of a sense of saltiness, perhaps? or are you in agreement or in some sort of agreement about the fact that this is in fact oil money? Because it kind of for lack of better word, it kind of dilutes this whole purpose of investment. Because uh, like I said, self-sufficiating, I don't think all we need is just a little bit of financial backing. We do not need like a large amount of money. Like for from a perspective, like if we take the entire package, like Walibai said, yes, there is a substantial work required, but we do not need all that money pumped in at once because of the sheer magnitude of how much we generate. So what are your thoughts on these oil money accusations, so on and so forth?
So let's take it down bit by bit. Um, yes, Manchester United is the kind of commercial brand that, despite not having a state-back ownership, can compete with the likes of Manchester City. Because when we look at their success, we need to keep in mind that A, they had money, and B, they spent it well. Manchester United have generated the kind of money that could help them compete with City, but otherwise, we are a basket case of a club who have not spent it the right way. So here we are. The Qatari ownership will not look at it in terms of money. They will not care about the fact that Manchester United can generate revenue. This is not what they are here for. So the easy questions to get out of the way is it will Manchester United Football Club become a sports washing project if the Qatari ownership arrives? Yes, that's the answer. There is no if and no but about it. You like it, you don't like it. It's on you. It is what it is at this point. Is there a bit of saltiness on the football fandom part about on the football fans part? Yes, because we made fun of Chelsea for being run by an oligarch until and we made fun of Manchester City for their oil money until we got linked with one. So that's hypocrisy on a very basic human level. We see this every single day. But in the last 3 months, I have seen more Qatari flags in the Manchester United fan groups than I did over the course of the entire World Cup. So that tells you everything you need to know. The sad reality is the saltiness aspect of it is that football fans secretly want that it's not someone else's club that gets the kind of money; it's their own club. Because you look what happened with Manchester, with Saudi, with Newcastle United. Is you had the Saudi flags flying high. You saw them wearing their cultural attire in the stadiums and everything like that. Why does that happen? Because sports washing works. It's as simple as that. It's incredibly effective. You look at the people who have been whose lives have been changed by the amount of work that the Abu Dhabi group has done in Manchester City, the kind of refreshment that they have done in the community, let alone the football club in the community, and the base it has become, the way their standards of life have improved. They, under no circumstances will they go against someone who actually made it happen. This works. That's the way of life. So is it a sports washing project? Yes. Will United become one? Yes. But the sad reality of the matter is that football fans come to football with a sense of escapism. They want to escape from the real life nitty-gritties and the real life dark sides that usually plague them over the course of their 24 hours. So the bare truth is that a football fan following a football team does not care, could not care about what is the geopolitical consequences of your football club being owned by a nation state. They just do not care. And I wish it was the other way around. It's not. So I'm just spitting out what is the unequivocal truth here. That I have a lot of respect for the likes of Miguel Delaney and Adam Crafton who do a lot of work just pointing people to the things that are just there because it's literally their job. They're journalists. They have to do this. The kind of abuse they get is abhorrent. And I wish that was not the case, but such is the way of social media that people don't like feeling uncomfortable. So they tell themselves different narratives to feel comfortable as much as they can. So, look, if you are, as a Manchester United football fan, people who care about United doing well, that is the only thing they want. They want the money to arrive, and the money will arrive if the Qatari ownership is confirmed. They will not care about their revenue because if the revenue is not there, they will inject money into the club because they would genuinely want the club to do well. Because again, that is the point of a sports washing project. You want to create a community where you have a very positive bond with people, so that these people can then in turn defend you and say that because our lives have been completely turned around by this. It's not a thing that is done by Orient nations. It's not a recent thing. This has happened in history all the time. The West has been doing it. The questions that reporters and football fans in general have been asking themselves is that should a football club be treated differently than a publicly trading company or another organization, and that is a completely separate discussion that is very valid, equally valid, and can be had otherwise. But as far as a football fan of a football club is concerned, they would not care and they cannot care about the geopolitical aspects of it, because A, they are not qualified enough to do so, B, they just don't care. They want their football team to sign flashy players, they want their football team to win all the trophies, win all the silverware, and celebrate that and embrace that escapism the same way they embrace their football team. So that is not going to change, and that is quite literally it. There's nothing more to it.
Yeah, fair enough. Respect your opinion. I've always done, and yeah, I think you've summed it up pretty well. So, Walibai, speaking a little bit more about the ownership part itself. Now, obviously, we are still in flux as of now. Even though the news that is coming around is positive regarding the ownership, the fact of the matter still remains that we are in a position of flux, as in how, when as to when the official announcement will be, when will the new owners take charge, when will the proof of funds and also off, and so on and so forth. So do you believe at this point, irrespective of the fact that the ownership news comes out say within this week, do we still approach this transfer window with our hands tied behind our back, considering the fact that the rest of the clubs around us will obviously go on to strengthen? It has been reported that Man City currently have close to 300 million to spend because of the prize money that they've received from a variety of competitions that they've been in. Newcastle will pump in a little bit more money now that they have to compete in 4 competitions, including the Champions League, and so they will need squad depth of their own. Arsenal, after having such a brilliant season in their recent years, will look into pump the money, especially now that their owner has got a renewed influx of cash with one of his other franchises winning the NBA. Just so, Anshuman Bhai, I think you must be abreast of this, that Denver Nuggets did win the NBA today morning itself, and that is one of the sporting institutions owned by Stan Kroenke, who also owns Arsenal.
I did not know that, so thank you for letting me.
Yeah, so he'll get a lot of cash inflection from that, and with Arsenal being the only team that hasn't won the major competition that the sport is a part of, I think it's a no-brainer as to he will be putting in the money for this season to strengthen the sides as well. Liverpool have already begun their transfer business. So do you believe we already are fallen behind in the race for acquiring our transfer targets already, despite of the positive news that is coming in and around the ownership? What are your thoughts on this state of flux, and whether the new ownership would arrive just in time, or do we enter another season underprepared, undercooked, and feeding on scraps like what we did for the past few years?
I think it's going to be difficult to attain our targets, especially the first choice targets that Ten Hag must have listed. And I'm sure Harry Kane is name number 1 right over there. But since we haven't yet decided on an owner yet, it's going to take a long process over there. And I think we might have to make do with some of the not so flashy signings for starters. But I don't know. I could be wrong. But like we've already mentioned, like there's someone at the door, Devlin, like I've said. I'll be just right back. And Shuman, if you could just take it from here for a while.
Yeah, okay, no issues.
Yeah, Anshuman Bhai, your thoughts on the same? Like, do you believe that we'd already fallen back?
So to answer the question, have we fallen behind? Yes, of course we have, because the other teams are doing their business. They're investing in the places they have to, and we are already falling behind. So we have the likes of Andre Onana and Diogo Costa. They are being rumored and being heavily linked with clubs that are our direct competitors, and we are still trying to figure out how to renew De Gea's contract. So that is where we are at right now. So that tells you everything you need to know. And
Also Pickford.
We are after Pickford, which is a conservative option, and it makes sense from Ten Hag's eyes because he fits the profile better than De Gea does. And yes, he's made fun of for the relatively short arms, the relatively short height, and his antics and everything. But he fits the profile better than De Gea does. And if the big name targets do not arrive, if Andre Onana does not happen, if Diogo Costa does not happen, David Raya seems to be going to Spurs. If he does not happen, then you will have to look at someone like at a club like Everton, who need to sell to generate funds as well, and they need to get out of the quagmire they're in. So Jordan Pickford feels like an option in that regard as well. I think if the ownership changes, the only thing that will change is the amount of money we might immediately be handed. But I think as far as the plans as to which part of the pitch, which position we are supposed to reinforce in, I think the plans that the likes of Murtaugh and Arnold have, I think we'll have to go ahead with that. It will be a matter of next summer whether they continue or not. But for now, they are here. So if the ownership are sensible, and if the Qataris have learned their lessons, having worked at PSG, and but legally this is a completely different entity, so we have no reason to believe that they will repeat those mistakes. So the thing that we need to keep in mind is that a plan is in place. It's a conservative plan that is being executed with an even more sense of delaying, because even the people who are working on these deals don't really know what kind of money they will have at their hand, whether they will have any kind of money. Because if the Glazers are leaving, why would you want to spend another dime? You would want to leave with as much money you can. And the new owners cannot do anything until they officially arrive. So it's a bit of a situation where they're in the middle of nowhere. So they can only plan for right now. So that's what they're doing. They are planning. So we are very much behind. There is a very much a possibility that if the by the time the turnover thing is the takeover thing is confirmed, most of our big name targets will have moved to different pastures, and we'll be left to pick up the scraps. And that is very much a likelihood. I would not blame the club and the hierarchy for this, because it's not something that they can control. They are in a situation where their hands are tied as well. But yeah, let's see, because it is we are lagging behind, and we have a lot of work to do on the recruitment side. But yeah, let's see what happens over the next few days as far as the takeover is concerned.
Or maybe perhaps another way to look at this is, I could be very unpopular. I could be uh, veering into the edge of hypotheticals here. But another way to look at this is perhaps the new ownership money has already been put in, and once when the announcement does take place, you could perhaps see a sense of acceleration with all our big name targets. Is this another way to look at it also?
I think it's one of the things we can think about, we can speculate on, but I think we will be venturing into illegal waters if the new, before the takeover is announced and even told to the Premier League. We are talking about a potential new ownership having given money to the club and saying, okay, do what you want, we'll do things in the background. That requires a level of clear communication between the two negotiating parties, because the Glazers need to convey that to the people that they have employed currently at the club, that we are moving on. So the new guys coming in are loaded; they will spend more money, so you can plan ahead accordingly. And we don't know that. We quite frankly don't know. We have to work on the assumption that the people working at Manchester United are relatively kept in the dark, have limited idea, but still don't have any more idea. Because if we are going after Pickford, then we have to assume that they have very limited understanding of what is happening with the takeover. So that is what I'm going on right now. It's a speculation that can be had, but I don't think the Qataris can promise any kind of money to the club right now without Premier League having confirmed that, okay, we are fine with the ownership structure, and you guys can go ahead. So there's that.
Jay says that lots of cleanups will be done, the pest glazers will be going out, and potentially we could once again see the real Man United. Well, Jihan, I hope that is the case, and I think a large section of Man United fans will also be eagerly hoping that this could actually be the case. Speaking about transfer targets, Anshuman Bhai, there is a very interesting development that has been taking place, and it involves a certain Frenchman who once again has decided that he's had enough. Of course, the person in question here we're talking about is Kylian Mbappe, and it has been revealed that all of a sudden, Mbappe once again has found Paris a kind of a poison chalice, or like we used to associate this term when Neymar was in and around that club, a bird in a golden cage, perhaps. And once again, he wants a way out. Now, a very interesting development coming here is that Qatari ownership would love Mbappe to be the statement signing, because it does seem that the situation between him and PSG is very tenuous, and there is a small likelihood. I personally, if you ask me, and if you look at it at face value, I believe that this is a very highly unlikely proposition to come in, and Mbappe himself has recently gone ahead and said that he would prefer to stay in Paris. But once again, you can understand the hoopla that has been made about the fact that he's not exactly wanting to sign a contract. PSG are pretty adamant about the situation. You either go on a free next summer or make sure that you're leaving this summer. Just don't leave us somewhere in the between hanging in limbo. And another player that PSG have been keeping a lot of eyes on is Marcus Rashford. Now we do know that there is not a lot of news coming out about Marcus Rashford's impending contract extension. All that we do know is that there are only talks that have been going on in the background, and as the days go by, we Marcus Rashford enters his final year of his contract as a Man United player. So with the possibility of losing Mbappe, there is a realistic chance that PSG could make a play for Rashford. So, what do you make of these potential links that have Mbappe making a very unlikely appearance at Manchester United? Do you believe there is any sort of merit to it, or is this just uh, like a case of some white smoke that is being poured around, just to make sure that that the process of the takeover is accelerated, or so on and so forth? You know the theories that go around, as when you want to make something look as legitimate as possible, there is another small mnemonic that is put around to make sure that the process is accelerated. So, what are your thoughts on this sudden, unexpected development that has come out pertaining to Mbappe and United?
So I remember when the Newcastle United takeover was going through, and everyone was immediately making jokes about how Neymar and Mbappe will be the first signings Newcastle would make. So that's how likely I think Mbappe going to Manchester United is. Because as far as the links, as far as the news that has broken over the 12 hours is concerned, a lot has happened. Fabrizio has reported that Mbappe has told the club that he does not want to stick around. And recently, the Athletic put out a post where Mbappe is seen saying that all of this media news in the media is just fake. I haven't said anything of the sort. I have already told the club I'm sticking around for another season. So, as far as I'm concerned, I have absolutely no reason to believe that Kylian Mbappe will have any interest in moving to Manchester United. We can look at what happened the last time he renewed his contract, because there was political interference. We know for a fact that President Macron called him up and told him to stick around for a while longer. We know the fact that Florentino Perez, Real Madrid's president, was very unhappy with how the things turned out, because they waited and waited and waited, and they spent a lot of transfer windows not spending money so that they could save the money for Mbappe's arrival. That did not happen. So there is a standoff between Mbappe and Florentino himself as well. And I think if and when Mbappe leaves, it's for Real Madrid. It's not going to happen for anywhere else. The Real, they have confirmed Jude Bellingham signing, but then they have also offloaded the likes of Marco Asensio and Eden
Maria,
Hazard off their wages.
Mariano
So
as well.
and Mariano Diaz is also gone. So that number 7 shirt, okay, that is going to Vinicius. That's irrelevant. But yeah,
Yeah.
the idea is that they are trying to figure out if it can happen this summer. What happens to Mbappe, whether he goes this summer or the next one, he goes to Real Madrid. It's not a matter of money. I think it's a matter of working things out between him and Florentino Perez, because Perez would want his ego satiated again. He has been hurt. His ego has been hurt. So he would want Mbappe to give him some kind of an assurance that, okay, you are the big guy. I made a mistake. I'm kneeling in front of you. I don't think Mbappe would do anything of the sort, but I think he is an incredibly mature person who has a lot of good people skills. He takes a stand and he does not budge from it. He's incredibly mature for his age. And I expect him to work things out between him and Florentino in a way where every party will feel like they have won. They have come out on top. The problem with PSG is they do not want to feel like losers here. They don't care about how much money they get from for Mbappe. That money, as far as revenue is concerned, is irrelevant. They want to be seen like they have pushed Mbappe out and they have gotten a decent money for it. So they also want to feel like winners. So we have a three-way standoff where Florentino wants to feel like he has won. Mbappe wants to feel like this move that has been in the pipeline for quite a while happens in a way where he does not end up ruining any existing relationships or creating more problems for himself. I don't think he is going to listen to President Macron anytime soon, because even at the end of the World Cup final,
You could see it. Yeah, you could see.
we saw that Macron was trying to have a photo op with him, was trying to look like he was consoling him and everything, and Mbappe was just not having it. He was not looking at him. It was like he could not give two flying fucks about what was happening there. So I
Exactly.
don't think that kind of involvement will happen. But as far as Mbappe is supposed to go, he is going to Real Madrid, whether it happens this year or the next year or the year after. I don't think Manchester United really come into this scenario. The Qataris may want to have him as part of their own project, but I don't think they can. They are in a position where they cannot really keep him hostage, and they would have to literally hold him against his will at this point. So he is sticking around for as much as he can. He has realized that the project as PSG is flaky, vacuous, vapid, and lacking of any kind of substance. He's 24 years of old now. He's running out of time as well. As hilarious as it is to say, he does not have too many years as well. He needs to have a career at Real Madrid and and a successful one at that. So I think he's going to Madrid, whether it's next season or in 2 years down the line. And I think we as Manchester United need to look elsewhere. And I think if the Qataris are coming, they would not want Rashford to leave at any cost because it's the homeboy. And even the Glazers would not want him to leave under their watch. I think once the matter of takeover is resolved, regardless of whether the Glazers stay or leave, I think Rashford will be getting a new contract, especially on the back of performances he had last season.
Will it be a very substantial contract? Do you think that
I
it is
hope
going
not.
to be? Do you think it's going because you know United's penchant for we always have that element of overpaying. I think we are still bearing the effects of that 375,000 pound a week contract that we offered De Gea 4.5 years ago, and we still are bearing the cost of it. And do you believe that the contract that Rashford would get would be around the lines of a 375,000, whether or not it is
I
Qatari
hope
ownership
not.
or no?
I hope not. I really hope not. I need United's entire wage structure needs to be reset properly, and wages need to be competitive, keeping in mind what kind of ownership we have. I think if even if the Qataris come in, I think the wages is something that needs to be kept in a way that we don't end up being taken advantage of, because that's what happened when you give someone £500,000 a week. Every other agent will use that number and start discussing wages in relative terms. Okay, that player is getting that much, so at least we should get this much and this much and this much, and this some percentage of this one. So once you have reached that mark, it's very hard to shy away from that mark and say that okay, one player is only one player will get that much money and the rest of you are not getting anything. So that needs to be kept in mind. The wage structure needs to be sustainable. So as much as I want Rashford to stay, I don't want a wage structure to be broken. So let those wages be good, substantial, but not over the top like the one we gave to him.
Fair enough. And I echo your sentiments about the fact that we should not pay over the odds for Ashford or whoever it is, irrespective of the season that they've had, because as you know. There will automatically be a 25% increase in the wages now that we've made the Champions League. It was something that was reduced last year because of the fact that we were out of it. So automatically there is a 25% increase in the contracts of every player now that we've made the Champions League. So automatically that wage does become a substantial one, even without the extension talks taken into consideration. So I think there is to be an element of caution exercised with not only his contracts but with the players who we will be renewing as well. There are talks of us renewing Lisandro Martinez's contract terms already after the season that he's had, and then with the potential influx of players coming in, we have to exercise an element of caution there. Anshuman Bhai, another PSG target only once again has been making the rounds, and that is Neymar. Now we all know what Neymar is, what Neymar was, and what Neymar has been throughout the course of this year. And at 30, I don't think there is a lot of good years left behind him. From a physical point of view, his ankles have been totally destroyed. Whether he plays for Brazil, whether he was playing for Barcelona, whether he was playing for Paris Saint-Germain in the past 4.5, 5 years, or 6 years, or whatever it is, this Neymar is a shadow of his physical version. He still is capable of that moment of magic whenever you want it. But do you think that these links, once again, it is another very left field link that has been linking Neymar to United on loan, on permanent deals? There are talks about a potential wage cut that he's ready to take to come into a project, so on and so forth. There is a lot of things that have been mixed around as far as the Neymar situation is concerned, which makes it a less straightforward proposition than Mbappe. While it was portrayed to be Mbappe, the signing of the Qatar era of United, the Neymar link is a little more shady, has a little more shadow to it. So my honest thoughts about the Neymar situation, I wanted to know from you. Do you really believe that we have a chance with Neymar? First. Second, would you want him even though he is ready to take a wage cut? And the third part is, do you think at age 30, where out of all the leagues that he's played in, the Premier League is going to be the most punishing from a physical point of view? Do you think his style of flamboyance or his maverick way of playing football, which is the Brazilian way in its purest form and essence, do you think that will cut out in the Premier League? So it's a three-part question. I would like to know your views on all three of them.
So, are the Neymar links to Manchester United legitimate? I would say ish, not exactly a yes or no, because United like to make big name signings no matter how stupid they are. B, whether I like Neymar to happen? No, just a simple answer. No, not please, not in a million years. Would he stylistically fit Eric Ten Hag's style? Yes. Would I still want Neymar? No, no matter how much of a wage cut he takes. So that's quite simply that.
And do you believe that he will? My third part was: do you believe that he will be able to cut it in the Premier League, which is arguably the most physical style,
To a
and
certain degree,
how?
to a certain degree, I think with physicality, when his physicality is concerned, we need to keep in mind that this Neymar is way past the way we saw with the one we saw at Barca. He's not 30; he's 31 now. So, and there are two things to this. There's the physical aspect that, like you pointed out, he has been tackled to the ground so many times. He has injury issues that are recurring at this point. We know about the fact that come every March, he somehow ends up getting any kind of magical injury that takes him away for his sister's birthday. Joking as much as it is, but the bare point remains that he's very injury prone. So the idea of paying him high wages or even reduced wages relative to those high wages goes out the window, because if a player is not going to be available to you in the long term, then what kind of positives he brings to the team goes out the window with that proposition. So could he cut in the Premier League? Days, yes, he will be the unbeatable player, much like Paul Pogba was. But you want to talk about squad building in a term, keeping in mind that teams need to play out 60-65 games in a season. Players are ideally to be made available for at least 40 games a season, if not in a full 90-minute capacity, then in a substitute capacity. So player availability is a big factor here, and we know for a fact that he has not been available. That is the physical aspect of it, and we know from a mental side as well, he's really exhausted, because this is a player who became one of Brazil's best player in the Brazilian Serie A, even when he was 16, 17 years old. So he has been playing for a good part of 15 years, at the top level for a good part of 15 years. And with all the pressure that he has had, taking the mantle of Pele and Ronaldo after him, it has taken quite a toll on him. And he has himself admitted this, that it's getting quite hard. And he
Yes.
feels like a player that will retire very early, or will end up in a semi-retirement by the age of 33, 34. So that is not a player Manchester United want. If you want him for his celebrity, go talk to an MLS club. I don't think we need him. We have different targets. We need to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on the lines, but I disagree with you on the fact that MLS would take him because they already got Messi. So their part of the celebrity quota is complete. I don't see Neymar wanting to go under Messi's shadow once again even in the MLS, so as to say. So I don't think I would agree with you on that matter. But coming back to our main crux, that is the ownership. Do you, in any form or shape, figure that there is a resolution coming in by the end of this week? Do you believe that it is going to happen this week, or do you believe that there will be still a little bit of those niggling details that will be ironed out, so on and so forth? Where do you stand on the timing of the announcement of this impending? Because I think you and I both know that this is done. This is sealed, pretty much sealed, and the only thing that is left is when is the decision coming out. So where do you stand on the decision standpoint of things? I know I said this earlier. I still iterate my fact to the people who are watching as well, that we are cautiously optimistic. we are taking every report that it is with a pinch of salt, weighing all the pros and cons, and then we're coming to the decisions and the explanations that we have on the stream. This stream is not in any way confirming that the takeover is done, but this is our personal opinions. I personally feel that this deal is close to its final stages or on the verge of completion. I don't know, Anshuman bhai, what are your thoughts? But I could very much assume that you are along the similar pathway of me. That is just me talking. I would want to know where you stand on this.
So my very honest answer is I have no clue,
Okay.
because I have been following this for 3 months, and at this point I'm tired, because when the owners don't know themselves what they want, we can only speculate. Like if we had any kind of intent, like let's say last year we know that Cristiano Ronaldo wanted to leave the club, so we at least had an intent, and then we can speculate on top of that intent. We don't know the Glazers' intent here. We don't know whether they want to sell or want to keep some kind of ownership in their hands. So when that is not clear to us, the amount of speculation and the spectrum of speculation is open to us, so we can assume anything. The only thing that I would keep in mind is that the season officially is about to end on June 30th, and July 1st is the day when the transfer window opens. The 23-24 season officially begins.
Isn't
So
it already
the
open, Anshuman bhai? Isn't the transfer window officially open?
technically it is open. Technically it is open. The season officially kicks off July the 1st.
First July.
So
First, okay.
discussions can happen in the background, because for all intents and purposes, people are looking forward rather than the previous season. So another thing is that the reason I believe that it's not immediately done is because a lot of things need to happen before the takeover is officially completed. Because as symbolic and as farcical Premier League's owners and directors fit and proper person's test is, it still needs to happen. And for that to happen, Premier League needs to be submitted an official bid by both the Glazers and both the whoever the new owners are. So both of these two parties will need to tell the Premier League that this is an agreement that we have reached. The Premier League will then take it into consideration, then see that this Group 92 that has been rumored around to be the official owner of Manchester United, do they suffice the legal requirements that the Premier League's ownership test has, and then it will be confirmed. So there are a few checkpoints that will need to be taken care of, and we will be intimidated on every step. So if the Premier League receives an official submission from the Glazers and the ownership, then we'll get to know about it, because Premier League will send out a statement. We have received nothing of the sort. We have only reports that are never 100% reliable. We always need to be considered with some kind of suspicion. So that needs to be kept in mind. When the Premier League gets this official submission that okay, a bid has been submitted that these two parties are interested in an exchange of a football club, then we can start talking about how quickly things can accelerate. Because right now, until that happens, we are all in the dark, and we can assume that it's happening quickly. But I have been wanting this to happen quickly for 3 months now, and
And we're still here.
I'm
We're still
lost.
here.
I'm stalled. Yeah. So yeah.
And there is also something called the proof of funds that also have to be submitted, right? Apart from the ownership test that the Premier League will undertake, I think there is a step where the prospective owners or whoever the preferred bidder is will have to submit a proof of funds that they have a sufficient amount of funds at disposal, not only while buying the club, but also to make sure that the club is sustainable for a longer period of time. Correct
They
me
will
if
have
I'm
to do
wrong.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they will have to do
Yeah.
that. That I don't think the Qatari consortium, I don't think will have an issue with that. I think the hiccup that might happen would be that the Premier League would want a specific person to know that they can actually could say that okay, this person is the head of the ownership of Manchester United. That was the issue when the first time the Newcastle United takeover did not happen, because they did not really have the idea of what kind of board of directors this new ownership was going to bring with them. They were very nebulous about it, and the whole payout queue thing was going on in the background as well. So that issue had to be resolved before the ownership could be considered uh, qualified by the league's otherwise very farcical structures. So that will be the only hiccup that we need to worry about. The proof of funds things, I think, is a bygone conclusion already.
All right, yeah. So my final question to you, Anshuman bhai, before we take stock and wrap up everything, with all seen and done, with all the reports that have been coming in from the last night, with all things taken into consideration from what the English sources are reporting as well, as far as the takeover is pertained to, what where do you stand on the probability of this deal happening? What are the chances of this deal happening, or we entering into the end game? To quote Doctor Strange from Avengers, we are in the end game now. So, what is the probability of this deal getting into its final stage now? As for you, I know you said that you do not have an idea, but if you would have to take an educated guess, where would you stand on that?
If I were to have an educated guess, I'd say the probability is 60%, which is
Okay.
basically saying that I have no idea. So it's 50-50, but I'm hopeful. I want things to change. I want to be proved wrong. So I'm adding 10% to the probability side. That okay, 60% likely that a change is coming. How good or the good and bad of that change we'll discuss once again once it happens. But let's put it at 60%.
Would you be celebrating with the hummus and pita, perhaps?
I like hummus and pita always, but I don't think I'll be celebrating a change of nation-backed ownership that way. My disillusionment with top-level football in general is a very radical and separate thing. But yeah, I would. One thing that I will celebrate will be the Glazers leaving the club, because I think the local community of Manchester, the Red Half of Manchester, deserves that, because to both of these things are true. You can be critical about the new ownership and what it represents, and celebrate the fact that otherwise really pathetic and undeserving owners will finally be leaving our club, who have run our club dry, who have ruined our club and the community around it. So that I will be celebrating. The other part, not so much.
So let's say you'd be celebrating with a cheeseburger then. All right, Anshuman Bhai, thank you so much for joining in. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and also to Wali Bhai, who was part of the stream earlier. It was fun. It was insightful. I had a good time to trying to decode what you felt about, what Ali Bhai felt about. Thank you so much to all of them who were part of the chat as well, and letting us know what they felt about the prospective ownership too. I and Anshuman Bhai would like to thank each and every one of you for joining the stream. Do go ahead, like the video if you do enjoy it. Do subscribe to our channel. We want to reach 2,500 subscribers by the end of the month, so do help us there. Also press the bell icon so that you're notified for every and any video that comes out of the channel. We will be rolling out a lot of content in the coming days to speak about when the deal is done, and then the potential transfer targets that we'll be talking about. So there is a lot more to decode here. So do watch this space. Do follow us, do support us in our journey to reach 2,500 subscribers. You've been here with us up until now, and I'm pretty sure that you will be with us right up until whenever we reach that milestone as well. Apart from that, we are perpetually active on our social media spaces on Instagram and Twitter. Do go out there, give us a follow there as well. Also, every day is match day on our official WhatsApp group, so we'd love to have you there as well. Join us, it's an ever-growing family. With that being said, this is me and Anshuman Bhai on behalf of MUFC Red Devils NCR, wishing all of you a goodbye. Thank you so much once again for joining in. We will see you on the other side. Up until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and GGMU to all of you. Goodbye and good night.
Bye.